Imagine an endless supply of free beer. That sounds like a dream come true, right? But when that free beer comes crashing down as a 15-meter high tidal wave, spilling over 1 million liters onto the streets, it quickly turns into a nightmare. Well, this bizarre event actually happened. On October 17, 1814, a colossal beer flood wreaked havoc in the St Giles area of London, claiming lives and leaving a trail of destruction. Today, we'll dive into the details of this unusual disaster, so let's get into it. Our story begins in the bustling city of London, at a place called St Giles. This area was known for its dense population and its struggles with poverty and vice. Right in the middle of this neighborhood stood the Horseshoe Brewery, at the corner of Great Russell Street and Tottenham Court Road. Moo and Company's Horseshoe Brewery was one of London's largest breweries, famous for its dark, rich porter. It produced over 100,000 barrels of this beloved beverage each year. Founded during the reign of King George III, the brewery had seen its share of success. But beneath the surface, there were underlying dangers lurking in its massive wooden vats. Dangers that would soon unleash chaos on the unsuspecting residents of St Giles. In 1810, the brewery had installed a gigantic 22-foot-high wooden fermentation tank, held together by massive iron rings. This tank was a marvel of brewing technology at the time, capable of holding the equivalent of over 3,500 barrels of porter. Little did they know, this seemingly impressive piece of equipment would soon become the source of one of London's most unusual and tragic disasters. The day was October 17, 1814. At around 4:30 p.m., George Crick, a storehouse clerk at the Horseshoe Brewery, was making his usual rounds. As he inspected the giant wooden fermentation tank, he noticed something concerning. One of the 700-pound iron hoops that held the massive vat together had slipped off. Although this wasn't an uncommon occurrence, it did raise a red flag. Crick reported the issue to his supervisor, who, unfortunately, dismissed it as nothing serious. After all, it had happened before without incident. He was instructed to write a letter to another employee to fix it later. But time was not on their side. Just an hour later, at around 5:30 p.m., the unimaginable happened. A thunderous explosion rocked the brewery as the enormous vat, filled almost to the brim with 10-month-old porter, burst. The force of the explosion was so powerful that it blew apart the tank and collapsed the back wall of the brewery. This catastrophic rupture triggered a chain reaction, breaking open several other vats and releasing an unstoppable torrent of beer. Over 320,000 gallons of beer surged through the streets, forming a tidal wave of dark, frothy liquid. The flood rushed through the narrow lanes of the St Giles Rookery, sweeping away everything in its path. The wave, reportedly 15 feet high, swamped George Street and New Street within minutes. With no drainage on the city streets, the beer had nowhere to go but into the homes and cellars of the unsuspecting residents. As the floodwaters rose, people clambered onto tables and furniture, desperately trying to escape the deluge. In one tragic instance, Mary Banfield and her 4-year-old daughter Hannah were having tea when the flood hit their home, leading to their untimely deaths. Just next door, an Irish wake for a 2-year-old boy was in progress. The mourners, including the boy's mother, Anne Saville, were caught off guard by the rushing beer and debris, resulting in 5 more fatalities. The scene was one of utter chaos and devastation. People fought to survive the unexpected flood, while rescuers worked tirelessly to save those trapped in the wreckage. Little did they know, the nightmare was far from over. Meanwhile, at the Tavistock Arms pub, 14-year-old Eleanor Cooper was going about her duties, completely unaware of the impending disaster. The collapsing wall buried her under rubble, leaving no chance for survival. The floodwaters swept through the streets with unstoppable force, inundating homes and businesses, causing more structures to give way under the pressure. The air was thick with the stench of alcohol and the cries of the injured and the grieving. Amidst the chaos, an unusual scene began to unfold. Crowds gathered, not just to help, but to witness the bizarre spectacle. Some accounts, though disputed, suggest that people took advantage of the flood, scooping up beer in whatever containers they could find or even drinking it straight from the street. The tragedy quickly became a macabre attraction, drawing hundreds of onlookers. For days, the streets were flooded, not just with beer, but with spectators eager to see the aftermath of the catastrophe. A coroner's inquest was swiftly convened to investigate the incident. The jury, after visiting the site and hearing testimonies, declared the disaster to be an act of God. This ruling meant that no one was held accountable for the tragedy, and the brewery faced no legal repercussions for the loss of life and property. For the victims' families, there was no compensation, only the burden of grief and the struggle to rebuild their lives. Despite the devastation, the brewery itself managed to avoid bankruptcy. The owners petitioned Parliament and were granted a waiver for the excise taxes they had paid on the lost beer. Additionally, they received over £7,000 in compensation for the destroyed barrels, a significant sum that helped them recover from the financial blow. However, not everyone was satisfied with the outcome. Letters to the press criticized the verdict, arguing that the brewery and others like it posed significant dangers to the community. Calls for stricter regulations and better safety measures were voiced, but for the time being, the brewery resumed its operations, haunted by the memory of the flood. The disaster had one lasting impact. It spurred a gradual shift away from wooden fermentation tanks. Over time, these were replaced by more robust, lined concrete vats, designed to prevent such catastrophic failures in the future. The Horseshoe Brewery, despite returning to production, could not escape the shadow of the flood, and it finally closed its doors in 1921. The site was eventually cleared, and today, the Dominion Theatre stands where the brewery once did, a symbol of the city's ability to rebuild and move forward. The impact of the London beer flood extended beyond the immediate area of St Giles. It became a part of local folklore, a dark chapter in London's history that highlighted the vulnerability of its working-class neighborhoods. Despite the brewery's eventual recovery and the return to production, the memory of the flood lingered in the minds of the city's residents. The London beer flood of 1814 is a stark reminder of the potential consequences of industrial negligence and the importance of maintaining rigorous safety standards. Thank you for joining us into the history of the London beer flood. If you found this story intriguing, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical accounts. Stay with us as we continue to explore the events that have shaped our world, one story at a time.